Hello friends, welcome back to this personal commentary and reflection on Plato's Apology. The links to the text I'm using and to the other videos related to this in the playlist are all in the description below, so be sure to check that out. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And we're picking up where we left off in this great work, right? Spending a lot of time on it because it's worth the time. This is a dialogue that's worth spending time with and learning from well. And so I'm happy to do that with you. I've read this work many times and studied it in several different contexts. So Socrates is now telling the story about why he has this bad reputation. And he received this oracle that no one is wiser than Socrates, so he's investigating this. He's trying to find someone wiser than himself. He goes to the politicians who must have wisdom, right? They're taking on the high and difficult task of administrating the city of Athens. These people must be wise, right? But when he interviews them, he finds they're not wise. But they think they're wise. Socrates knows that he's not wise. So the one advantage that he has over them is that he knows he's not wise. So continuing on, I'm starting with the paragraph, "After this I went." So if you're following along with the reading on the website and the link below in the description, you can search for "After this I went." After this I went to one man after another, being not unconscious of the enmity which I provoked, and I lamented and feared this. So he's going around talking to each individual person, and he knows that he's making them angry. He knows he's making enemies, and he laments that. He's sad about that, and he's somewhat fearful. But he says, "But necessity was laid upon me. The word of God, I thought, ought to be considered first." So he's not thinking about, well, I don't want to make any more enemies, so I'm just going to stop pursuing truth and this mission that I've been given by the God. I have to obey God first. And, that's a good lesson for all of us. Where in our list of priorities, where do we place the highest command, right? Where do we place our obedience first? And, if there is a God, then certainly that should be the number one priority, because that is the foundation of everything else, right? Any other level of command finds its source from the divine, right? And so, and I said to myself, "Go, I must, to all who appear to know, and find out the meaning of the oracle." So again, he thinks he's following this divine command. "And I swear to you, Athenians, by the dog I swear, for I must tell you the truth, the result of my mission was just this. I found that men most in repute were all but the most foolish, and that some inferior men were really wiser and better. I will tell you the tale of my wanderings and of the Herculean labors, as I may call them, which I endured, only to find at last the oracle irrefutable. When I left the politicians, I went to the poets, tragic, dithyrambic, and all sorts." So, all right, the politicians, he's kind of exhausted that resource. They're not wise. But the poets, now, they celebrated poetry, and they had poetry and, play, theater, festivals. So they were very into the arts, which is a sign of a high civilization, right? So he goes to the poets because there seems to be a lot of wisdom and inspiration in what they do. "And there I said to myself, you will be detected. Now you will find out that you are more ignorant than they are." So he's saying to himself, now I'm going to find out they really do know more than I do. "Accordingly, I took them some of the most elaborate passages in their own writings, and I asked what was the meaning of them, thinking that they would teach me something." So he brings them their own works, like these beautiful passages, depth and meaning and beauty, and he's going to say, "So explain this to me. What does this mean?" And that showed me in an instant that not by wisdom, he says, "Will you believe me? I am almost ashamed to speak of this, but still I must say that there is hardly a person present who would not have talked better about their poetry than they did themselves." So they spoke very, very highly of their own poetry. Nobody praised it more than they themselves did. And he says, "That showed me in an instant that not by wisdom do poets write poetry, but by a sort of genius and inspiration. They are like diviners or soothsayers, who also say many fine things, but do not understand the meaning of them." So a prophet may be like a mouthpiece of a god, but they themselves may not understand what it is that they're saying. And so he's saying that's kind of like what happens with the poets. They are sort of like these conduits of this wisdom somehow that's being expressed, but they themselves don't really understand it. And poets appeared to me to be much in the same case, and I further observed that upon the strength of their poetry, They believed themselves to be the wisest of men in other things in which they were not wise. So because they could write good poetry, they thought that they were really wise. Right? And I think we do a similar thing, right? Artists who, singers and actors, these people can be brilliant artists, right, or visual artists, but that doesn't then make them wise about the true nature of the good and the beautiful and justice and that sort of thing. So I departed, this is what he says, I departed conceiving myself to be superior to them for the same reason that I was superior to the politicians. And what was that one reason? He knew he was not wise. They thought they were wise, but they were not. He knew he's not wise. That's his one point that he has above them. He's saying, at last I went to the artisans, people who make things, for I was conscious that I knew nothing at all, as I may say, and I was sure that they knew many fine things. Look at the beautiful things that they can make. They're working with their hands, with creation, right? With reality, concrete reality. And in this I was not mistaken, for they did know many things of which I was ignorant. And in this they certainly were wiser than I was in the craft of making things. Socrates knew he had no wisdom there. But I observed that even the good artisans fell into the same error as the poets. Because they were good workmen, they thought that they also knew all sorts of high matters, and this defect in them overshadowed their wisdom. Therefore I asked myself on behalf of the oracle, whether I would like to be as I was, neither having their knowledge nor their ignorance, or like them in both. And I made answer to myself and the oracle that I was better off as I was. So he would rather be wise about his own foolishness than be foolish about his own foolishness, right? He would rather not be wise and know that he's not wise than to not be wise and to think that he's wise. The people who think that they're wise but are really not, they're in a worse off position. That's what Socrates is saying here. Okay, so now he kind of sums it up. This investigation has led to my having many enemies of the worst and most dangerous kind, and has given occasion also to many calumnies, hateful sayings, and I am called wise, for my hearers always imagine that I myself possess the wisdom which I find wanting in others. When you read some of Plato's earlier dialogues, what you find is that Socrates is questioning people, say like in the Euthyphro, about the nature of piety, right? And he's trying to say, well, what is piety? Is piety obedience to the gods? Is something pious because the gods like it, or the gods like it because it's pious? And so people think that he must have this wisdom because he's asking all these questions. But a lot of the dialogues are left unresolved. You don't get a good definition of piety or a solution to what they call that, the dilemma about goodness and God, etc. Right? So he is gaining this reputation. And again, this is his defense against boxing against shadows. How all the people there in the jury have this bad image, this bad prejudice and bias against Socrates, right? So people think that he's wise because he questions people. He says, but the truth is, O men of Athens, that God only is wise. All right, so really he's saying that as far as he can tell, God is the only one who has any real wisdom about what is true and good, the nature of justice, liberty, and beauty, and these big, big questions. And in this oracle, he means to say that the wisdom of men is little or nothing. Right? So the things that we think we know really isn't worth much. He is not speaking of Socrates. He is only using my name as an illustration, as if he said, he, O men, is the wisest, who, like Socrates, knows that his wisdom is in truth worth nothing. So it didn't say that no one is wiser than Socrates. Rather, it didn't say that Socrates is the most wise, right? Like there's nobody else on his same level. Just that no one is wiser than Socrates, right? So anybody who is at the same level of Socrates, knowing that his wisdom isn't worth much, that person is on that same level with him, right? And so I go my way, obedient to the god, and make inquisition into the wisdom of anyone, whether citizen or stranger, who appears to be wise. And if he is not wise, then in vindication of the oracle, I show him that he is not wise. So then, he's kind of like defending the god and the command and the saying that came from the god, and demonstrating to the person, like, yeah, you're not as wise as you think. Again, he thinks this is part of his mission. He knows he's making enemies, but his obedience is first to God. And this occupation quite absorbs me, and I have no time to give either to any public matter of interest or to any concern of my own, and I am in utter poverty by reason of my devotion to the God. So again, he's not accepting fees for his teaching or anything like that. So going on, he has made enemies, excuse me, because he's chosen all the most powerful people in Athens, the artisans, the poets, and the politicians. Not only that, but he has inspired some people to imitate him, but not in a good way. Here's what happened. He says, there is another thing. Young men of the richer classes who have not much to do come about me of their own accord. So people who are rich, they have time on their hands, right? They're the leisure classes. These rich young men, the unruly youths, darn teenagers, right? They like to watch Socrates because they like to watch him embarrass these powerful people. They like to hear the pretenders examined, and they often imitate me and examine others themselves. Right? So they imitate Socrates not because there's a divine command, not because they're actually pursuing wisdom, but because just for fun, right? To put other people down. There are plenty of persons, as they soon enough discover, who think that they know something, but really know little or nothing. And then those who are examined by them, instead of being angry with themselves, are angry with me. This confounded Socrates, they say, this villainous misleader of youth. Right? So when people are exposed in their ignorance, instead of in humility recognizing that, and then also looking for instruction or being upset with themselves, they turn it, right? This is the act of pride. They turn it against and they get angry at somebody else when they themselves have been shown up. And then if somebody asks them why, what evil does he practice or teach? Right, so they're blaming Socrates. Well, what's he done? They do not know and cannot tell. But in order that they may not appear to be at a loss, they repeat the ready-made charges which are used against all philosophers about teaching things up in the clouds and under the earth and having no gods and making the worse appear the better cause. For they do not like to confess that their pretense of knowledge has been detected, which is the truth. And as they are numerous and ambitious and energetic, and are all in battle array and have persuasive tongues, they have filled your ears with their loud and inveterate calumnies. And so, he's saying then that these people are angry. That they say, well, what has Socrates done? And then they're just repeating the sayings. They're repeating the slogans that they've learned about Socrates. I think that this is also kind of a parable for philosophy in general. I've been in settings where I studied philosophy, and the people there, the instructors and the students, most of them were not there because they were in love with wisdom. It was not a loving pursuit of truth. They weren't filled with wonder. They were, kind of jaded, cynical people, and they were using philosophy as a stick to beat ideas that they didn't like. Right? And there they've really lost the heart of philosophy, and I think it's them that give philosophy a bad name. The same way that these youths, by imitating Socrates, just his methods, have given Socrates a bad name. And so if you're going to be a philosopher, do it well. Be filled with wonder. And don't do it in a way just to put down ideas that you don't like, but really seek the truth. It's a beautiful thing, and it's something that we're all made for, whether we realize it or not. We all have this deep desire for truth and for wisdom. So don't be like the unruly youths, right? Imitate Socrates in the fullness of what it is that he's doing. And this is the reason why my three accusers, Meletus and Anytus and Lycon, have set upon me. Meletus, who has a quarrel with me on behalf of the poets, Anytus on behalf of the craftsmen, and Lycon on behalf of the rhetoricians. The rhetoricians are the other teachers and the sophists and that sort of thing. And as I said at the beginning, I cannot expect to get rid of this massive calumny all in a moment. So he realizes he's just given this defense, but again, this is a deep-seated thing in most people. He's not going to be able to just get rid of it. And in this, O men of Athens, is the truth and the whole truth. I have concealed nothing. I have dissembled nothing, and yet I know that this plainness of speech makes them hate me. And what is their hatred but a proof that I am speaking the truth? This is the occasion and reason of their slander of me, and you will find out either in this or in any future inquiry. So he's given his defense why he has this bad name. He's made enemies of people because he's following the divine command, and these youths have imitated him in an unjust kind of way and for unjust reasons. And so that's all we have time for today. We'll continue next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and then you'll get a notification when the next video is up. Thanks for watching.